Can I retire at 60 years old with $900,000 saved for retirement? That's what we're going to look at today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. I've got Tony Stark. Obviously, the names have been changed to protect the innocent. He's got $900,000 saved for retirement. He lives in New York. He lives in a high-cost, high-tax state. So his expenses are going to be higher, his cost of living is going to be higher, and his taxes are going to be higher. And we're asking the question, can I retire with my current expenses and my current fun spending? Fun, F-U-N, spending. All right, that's what I want to look at today on this channel. Let's get into this right now. All right, so here we go. We got Tony Stark. All right, now, obviously the name has been changed to protect innocent. Now tell me in the comments, are you a Marvel or a DC person? Now, I never grew up reading comic books. That was just not my thing, but I do like Marvel over DC. I guess Iron Man versus Batman would be my thing. I mean, what are you, an Iron Man person or a Batman person? And I really hate that they killed him off. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched all the Marvel movies. Now, he's currently retired and he lives in New York. Now, his Social Security benefits at 67 are going to be $3,000 a month. Now, keep in mind, if he were to claim at 62, he would get $2,100. That's 70% of his full retirement benefit. If he were to claim at 67, which is what we're projecting, he's going to get $3,000, which is 100% of his full retirement benefit. And if he waits till 70 to claim, he's going to get 124% of his full retirement benefit, which is $3,720. Now, at any time, he can claim between ages 62 and 70. And so you can see the progression as you get closer to 67 and as you get over 67, okay? Now, from an asset standpoint, we've got three main assets. We've got $235,000 at Schwab in a traditional IRA. We have $525,000 in a Roth IRA at Schwab, and we have $150,000 in the bank. Okay, so we have three types of taxable accounts, or three types of tax qualifications on these accounts. The first tax qualification is a traditional IRA. Now, let me explain to you the taxes on a traditional IRA. Basically, all the money you've put into a traditional IRA is pre-tax, meaning you have not paid taxes on it, and you've got a qualified contribution on your tax return, meaning you have not paid taxes for that income when it's gone into your IRA or into your 401k. Now, when you go to use that for income, it's going to be considered ordinary taxable income, dollar for dollar. That's how a traditional IRA works. Tony also has a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is the exact opposite of a traditional IRA. In a Roth IRA, all the money that goes into the Roth IRA is post-tax, meaning you paid taxes on that income. You claimed it on your 1040 or on your 1099 or however you get paid. You claimed that income. You paid taxes. Now you've put that income into a vehicle that grows tax-free. So this Roth IRA is growing 100% tax-free. And when you pull the money out of a Roth IRA for retirement income, it is all tax-free. All right. Now, Tony also has $150,000 in the bank. Now, his bank money is non-qualified money, meaning he's going to pay taxes on the interest or on the dividends, if he's at a credit union, that he gets in his bank. Now, this is a very low tax rate right now. We're only showing a 2% rate of return. Now, if this money was in a brokerage account, maybe at Schwab as an individual account, it would still be considered non-qualified, and he would pay taxes on the capital gains. That means if you buy a stock and it goes up and you make money on it, that's a capital gain. You can write off capital losses. You buy a stock and it goes down and you sell it for a loss, and you have to pay taxes on the dividends and interest. So with Tony, we have three different types of investments, three different types of tax vehicles, and we have to understand this when we're building out our retirement plan. And I'll show you how all that works at the end of this video, because we're going to put all this together as we're taking this jigsaw puzzle and turning it upside down, and we're putting these pieces together to get a clear picture for Mr. Stark. All right. Now, Tony has a home. It's worth $400,000 and it's paid off. Okay. So it's the same house he's lived in for a long time and it's paid off. Now, from a portfolio standpoint, we're going to look at a couple different things. For his traditional IRA and his Roth IRA, we're going to show a 4.5% rate of return. Tony's walked into retirement. He wants to show a very low rate of return for his investments, meaning the money in his IRA, the money in his Roth IRA, we're going to project out a 4.5% rate of return. But hang on to about the middle of this video, because we're going to look at multiple different rates of return, what we call an incremental and a range analysis. So hang on to that. We're going to get to that in just a second. That's something I've never showed here on Your Financial EKG. Now, we're also going to give the bank a 2% rate of return. I just think that 2% is what we can safely show over the long term, because interest rates, they were at 0.0 nothing for a long time. I think we'll probably stay at about 2% over the long term, okay? In our house, we're going to do a 1% rate of return. Now, so that means our portfolio weighted average is 4.09%. So our total portfolio has basically a 4% rate of return. That's the IRA, the Roth IRA, and the brokerage account combined. All right, you understand? Hang with me. We're putting all this together for you. So we've got $910,000 in retirement savings, of which 57 or almost 58% is Roth IRA, high five and chest bump. That's tax-free. We've got 16% non-qualified. There's some taxes on that. And we've got 25% that's qualified, meaning that's all taxable, okay? So we'll look at, does it make sense to do some conversions in his standpoint? Keep in mind, he's in a higher tax state, a higher cost state, and he's close to 65, which means he's getting close to Medicare. So if we're doing Roth conversions, we have to be careful of IRMA taxes. IRMA taxes are your Medicare taxes. And if we're doing Roth conversions, that could throw your Medicare taxes up, makes you pay more for your Part B that comes out of your Social Security check. So there's a lot of things we have to be looking at and making sure we're watching. Just like when you're driving, there's all these different things you're looking at when you're driving. It's the same when we're building out your financial plan. All right. Now, his risk classification, I want to hang out here for a second because we're going to really talk about the market today and rates of return for Tony. But we've got 83% of his money is at risk. And that just means that it's in the market. Okay. 16% is low risk. Now, low risk could be defined as bank account, a CD, a money market account, like a fixed annuity, anything you can't lose money in. All right. That's your low risk investment. Cash under your mattress, whatever. What we want to look at for Tony is, what is your risk allocation? Like, what do you prefer, Tony? So let's do the risk assessment together so that you can see what Tony said in his questionnaire. So what dollar amount would you like to keep in liquid accounts, such as checking, savings, and money market? So I asked Tony, I said, what do you want to leave in the bank? And he said, well, $4,000 is my monthly expenses, so I would like to have about $50,000 at all times liquid. I said, okay, $50,000. So that's about a year's worth of income, just in case. How many years can you let your assets grow before you have to take withdrawals? He has to take withdrawals right now. So 0 to 2 is where we're at. Our time horizon is short. Boom, we're retired. Take the income out. So our approach to savings and risk. What statement best describes how you feel about savings and risk? I do not want to see my principal amount decrease. I cannot afford a significant loss to principal. If my interest or rate of return stays ahead of inflation, I don't want exposure to risk. If I can make moderate interest or rate of return on my investments, I can withstand some market fluctuations. That's where Tony was at. The last one is, I want to invest for higher returns. I'm willing to take some risk. That's not where he's at right now. He's not willing to take a ton of risk, right? Warren Buffett says, don't risk what you have for what you don't need. Let that sink in for a minute. Interest earning. What would you consider a reasonable rate of return? Remember, we're showing 4.5, so we're going to use 3 to 4% because we're looking at a 4% portfolio rate of return. And you know what? Let's do 4 to 6 because I think 4 to 6 is more of a conservative approach for him. 3 to 4 is getting a little too conservative, especially with what he's trying to do. Now, here's a great question. Which one of these possible outcomes on a 1-year investment below indicates the amount of risk you'd be comfortable taking? I love that question. Best case, a $2,000 gain. Worst case, a loss of 0. That's probably that 3 to 4%. Best case, a $4,000 gain or a $4,000 loss. $8,000 gain, $8,000 loss. 12 and 12, 16 and 16. For Tony, we're right in the middle, 8 and 8. Okay, so let's hit save and close. So now look at this. Here's what's crazy. When we look at the software, his desired risk analysis would be 77% low risk, 17% at risk, and emergency fund of 5.4%. You see the difference between the two? Now, I'm not saying this green goes into the bank, CDs, an annuity, whatever. No. In his case, it's got to stay in the market, but we need to understand that how we invest this money needs to be associated with his risk profile and the amount of risk that we need to earn the income. So there's this risk capacity, like what your portfolio can generate an income and the risk you need to take to get that income. Does that make sense? Let's keep going through this and it's going to make a lot of sense. So that's why we do this, right? We also have to use our brain. We can look at the computer program, but we also have to say, well, what actually makes sense? Now, from an expense standpoint, we've broken this down into two major expenses for Tony. We've got baseline expenses of $4,000. That's his everyday expenses, utilities, heat, gas in New York, all that stuff, okay? And we're going to show a 3.27% rate of return. That means it's going to grow with inflation at 3.27%, which is the 109-year average. Our fun bucket is $1,500 a month. So, and we're going to do fun at a 0% inflation rate. That means that he's going to adjust his fund based on inflation. He told me, hey, Drew, I have done a ton of vacations. I've done a ton of cruises. Tony been single for a long time. He's been on his own. So he says, I'm willing to have more fun up front as I'm older and as inflation picks up, have less spending power and go to less exotic locations. And, you know, exotic locations could be Miami. He's close to Niagara Falls. I don't know what exotic means to him, but we're going to show a 0% inflation rate on fun. And we're going to end the fund in the year 2044. Okay, so this is eventually going to peter out, and his purchasing power, keep in mind, is petering out because we're not showing inflation. Normally, I put inflation on fun, but this is Tony's preference, okay? So I'm just building out what his preference is. Now, keep in mind the average inflation rate for Tony Stark, is 2.38%, all right? If we put the 3.27 in here, that bumps it up to 3.27, which is the average inflation rate. Because Tony wants it at 0, now we're at 2.38. So keep in mind when you're doing your expenses, you need to come to an inflation rate that's built for you. Okay. Now, built into this baseline expenses is his healthcare. Built into this baseline expenses is his food, his utilities, everything. So you've got to build out an inflation rate and expense report that's built for you so that you can project accurately what your expenses are. Don't just do like, oh, my expenses are $5,000 a year. Are there expenses that are going to end in there? Do you have an auto loan? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have credit card debt that's going to go away? Do you have a child that you're paying for to subsidize their living that's going to stop? Are there expenses that are going to go away? That way we can accurately project out your retirement income. Guys, cash flow and income. The two most important things in your retirement are your income and your expenses. You want to know what's coming in and what's going out. We got to understand that before we retire, okay? Cash flow is a really good section to kind of get an idea of where his income's going to come from. So if we go down here to his accounts to pay expense, we can see that we've got the Schwab IRA, the Schwab Roth IRA, and the bank. So in this year, so in the year 2023, well, let's just go to 2024. So for the year 2024, we're going to be using his Schwab IRA for income. You see that? Total withdrawals of $70,540. We fronted some of the taxes up front, and there's the bank account interest. And so we can see where our income is going to come from. And you can see the gap we have here. So his total income is coming out of all of his investments, meaning our gap, basically what's being made up with guaranteed income, is 0 because we're not on Social Security yet. But if we go 7 years, let's see, 23, 30, let's go to 31. That makes it easy for me. We go to 2031. Now we're taking money out of his Roth IRA. There's the bank. Our gap now is less because our covered expenses, right? We're covering our expenses with Social Security. You see that? Let me go up here and show you. Here's our gross income. Well, let me go up a little higher. Here's our Social Security. So our gross income is $3,077. All right. Our expenses are $6,578. Our net cash flow is $3,501. So 46% of our expenses are covered with Social Security. All right. So that's how it changes over time. That's why we got to understand our cash flow, our cash flow, our cash flow. We've got to understand this. Let's go to taxes. Let's go to 2024. So remember, we're in New York. So we have a higher state tax of about 6%. His projected federal rate is 11.48. He's in the 22% bracket. We're at 11.48. But keep in mind, guys, taxes are going to change in the year 2026, right? They're going to go up. So let's increase them. We got to be accurate. Let's go up 25%. That's back to the Obama era taxes. And now, if we go to 2026, we're at 14.32 and we're in the 27.5% bracket. Okay, so we got to understand taxes because the amount of money that you have to send to the Fed is a big condition of how long your income's going to last, right? Because if you need $3,000 a month, but you got to send 10% to the Feds, that's $300 extra. So that's $3,600 a year that you've got to account for that's going to the Fed for taxes. So that's draining on your accounts as well, okay? We go to retirement. Let's look at this. Okay, so right up front, we can see, like right here in the retirement funds analysis, we can see that he's out at 82 years old. And we can see from a shortfall standpoint, we need $451,000 injected into the portfolio today to make this last to 100. Now, does it need to go to 100? No, but I'm just saying 82 is probably pretty close to where we don't want to run out of money. Now, we can do a HECM or reverse mortgage, but let's just not do that for a minute. Rate of return needed to avoid a shortfall is 7.14%, meaning his portfolio needs to earn 7% to never run out of money. We're running it at 4%. So what can we do? Well, let's see what we can do here. So let's look at Social Security first. Keep in mind, the start date on your Social Security will determine when you're going to have to or how much you're going to have to take out of your retirement investments for income. So if you start your Social Security at 62 and your expenses cover, or your Social Security covers 50% of your expenses, then only 50% of your retirement income has to come out of your retirement investments. But if you start Social Security at 67 and at 62, you need 100% of your income from your retirement investments to cover your expenses, then you're hitting that vehicle first and not using Social Security. So for him, when we run the analysis, the program says, hey, take Social Security at 62. Remember, that's 70% of your full retirement benefit. Well, Drew, why does that matter? Well, look at this. If we take it at 62, the program's saying we'll get an extra year of income. What if we go to 63? 83, 64, 83. So we want to stay in this earlier range for Tony because that's going to extend the life of his retirement income. Now, again, everybody says, oh, take Social Security at 67, take it at 70, delay, especially because he's single. I say this, if you're single, we want to try to maximize Social Security. All right, now let's look at withdrawal order, because withdrawal order means where are we taking our retirement income first? So we've got our traditional IRA, we've got our Roth IRA, and we have our bank. So let's mess with these to see if we can update our withdrawal order. So what if we take our Roth IRA first and we delay our IRA? Look what that did. That backed us up a year. So let's go back and put the traditional IRA. Now we're at 83. What if we take money out of the bank first? Ooh, 86. So you see what just happened there? We're going to take money out of the bank first. Obviously, we need $50,000 in emergency funds. We're going to take money out of the traditional IRA second and the Roth IRA third. That gets us to 86. What if we take it out of the Roth IRA second? Keeps us at 86. No big deal. Okay? So we've done a Social Security adjustment and a withdrawal order adjustment. And those have gotten us 3 extra years of retirement income. What if we check our expenses? And I say to, hey, Tony, what if we adjust this to 1,000? What does that do? Now we go down here. Look at that. It takes us to 90. So we had it at 86. Now we're going to 90 by adjusting the expenses. Now, what if we put inflation on this? I say, hey, Tony, why don't we just put inflation on your expenses? What does that do? It takes him to 87. So now adding inflation to his fund gets us to 87. We were at 86 with no inflation. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But if we want to stay at 0, like Tony said, meaning we're just going to spend $12,000 a year no matter where that takes us, okay? That gets into 90. That makes me feel a lot better because then we can do the reverse mortgage on that $400,000 house, late 70s, 80s. That's going to help cover long-term care and some of those other expenses. So let's save this and let's add it to the analysis. So you see what we've done there? We've made adjustments for Tony Stark, right? Just like he made adjustments to his suit throughout all the movies. You'll notice from the first movie to the final movie, he made adjustments. We're doing the same thing with his retirement plan, okay? Now, again, leave in the comments, Batman or Iron Man, who do you like better? And it might be, if you're in New York, you might say, well, I like Batman, I live in New York. Doesn't Tony Stark in New York too? I don't know, again, I'm not a huge comic book guy. Let's go to the market. So this is what I want to concentrate on for a little while because I want you to understand exactly what the market does. All right, so let's focus on the market for Tony here. And what we're going to look at is we're going to look at 3 different analyses. Remember, he's 60 years old. We've got $900,000 saved for retirement. How does the market affect his overall retirement plan? Well, let's look at this. We've got a 4.5% rate of return right now, okay? If we look at where he runs out of money with 4.5%, we're running out at 90. So what we're showing is a 4.5% just geometric rate of return. And he's out at 90. Now his expenses are $4,000 in baseline expenses, $1,000 in fund money that lasts 20 years. We're out at 90. But what if we throw in some Monte Carlo? What if we throw in some randomized rates of return? And what we can do is we can put some rules or some guardrails on our analysis or on our assumptions to see exactly what it would do to our portfolio. So in this case, we're going to look at a minimum negative of 20%, a maximum positive of 20%, and any increments of 25%. I'll show you what increments mean here in just a second. What this is going to show us is 2 things. On this side, it's just straight 4.5%. Over here, market comparison, it's 4.5% annualized over time, but we're going to have randomized rates of return that are going to get us to the 4.5%. You see what I'm saying? The left side is 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. The right side, the market side, is 4.5, but it's like 8, 8, 13, 14, 7, 9, 2, 11, 12. And at the end of his life, it's 4.5%. Okay? If we look at this, this analysis has him out at 76 years old. We're out at 76. Now let's generate a new rate of return. Here's what we're doing. We're going to start out with 4 bad years, 9, 7, 1, and 11. And when you start out with bad years, that's what they call sequence of return risk. Now, sequence of return risk is the risk that when you step into retirement, the market is going to fall. When you step into retirement, the market goes down year 1, year 2, year 3. Boom, you're out. Boom, boom, boom. Year 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Boom, boom, boom. You're done, done, done. And what the problem with the sequence of return risk is when you go into retirement and the market goes down, you're pulling income out of your investments, the market's going down. So it's down 10%, but you're taking 4% off of your investments. So really you're down 14%. And in order to get back to even, you got to make 28%. So you're climbing this mountain, but there's an avalanche of snow coming at you. That's what sequence of return risk is. And that's what we want to protect against. It goes back to your risk profile. How much money do you want to have at risk? Because if we can protect some of your money from the volatility in the market, that's going to make your retirement income easier to generate. I call it the 316 principle. The 3 in the 316 principle is we want 3 forms of income. We want Social Security to be maximized for us. We want 1 form of guaranteed income, whether that's through a pension, an annuity, a structured note, a bond, whatever, guaranteed. And then we want to have our variable income. That's what we're going to pull off of our market money for variable expenses fund. So it's 316 principle. I know a really good verse that starts with 316. All right. So we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, we generate a new randomized rate of return. Where are we at now? Oh, boom, we're at 88. So this helps us get a good idea of where our performance or where our market money would be based on random performance. So let's look at increment analysis now. So increment analysis is really nice. So it's going to say, hey, we're going to make 4.5%. That's what we're looking at. But we're going to back up 25% and back up 25% to see what that would do to our portfolio. And we're going to go up 25% and 25% to see what that would do to our portfolio, right? So our projected rate of return is about 4.5%. So if we make 3.38%, we're at zero. 2.25, we're at zero. If we make 5.6 at 100, we'll have $154,000. That's pretty good, right? 5.6%. Markets averaged 8% with inflation since 1950. 5.6 should not be too hard. 6.75, we're at 1.3. That might be a little bit harder in retirement to guarantee. I mean, not guarantee is a bad word, to project out. But this gives us a great idea of the rates of return, if we got them, what our portfolio would be worth later in life. And then what we can do is we can look at a range analysis and we can say, hey, based on these different ranges, right, here's 2.25, 3.38, 4.5, 5.6, 6.75. We're going to bust this out all the way till he's 100, and that's going to give us these numbers. And we can just generate different ones and see what it does. Look at this analysis. 5.63%. He's got $2.8 million. Remember, it was $154,000 just a second ago? Why is that, Drew? Because of the way these randomized rates of return generate. Like, and you might be saying, well, Drew, that's silly. How do we project that out? How do we look? Well, I don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow. I had a crystal ball and I dropped it. Now I use a magic 8 ball. Will the market go up? Maybe so. Will the market go up? Ask someone else. So that's why we want to, I mean, again, we're trying to be as conservative as we possibly can in our projection, but also be as accurate as we possibly can, okay? So for Tony, we've made the adjustments. We've looked at all the different scenarios. Now that we've run the market analysis, we know we're going to need a little bit more rate of return to get us to where we need to be. We need to be probably in that 5% range. So that means we need to adjust our investments for 5%. Okay, so I hope this has helped you gain more knowledge for your retirement, helped you in your retirement planning. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.